Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we have an exciting rumor, or rather a pair of exciting rumors to discuss today having to do with the Metroid series. One of the rumors has to do with the Metroid Prime series, and I think this could be something absolutely huge that is going to be thrilling for pretty much the entire fan base. But then we have another rumor that's a bit more on the cryptic side that may not have to do with Metroid, I will point that out, but I think it probably does. And this also could be something very exciting for the Metroid series going beyond Metroid Prime 4. So we have a lot to discuss today. Now, I will take this moment to point out that I am aiming for a goal of 60,000 subscribers, hopefully by the end of the year. So if you find yourself enjoying my content, I would like to ask that you consider liking and subscribing, leaving a positive comment, and if you're not sure yet, that's totally fine. Watch through the video and then decide. But for those who have stuck around and are subscribed, I thank you. Your support is immensely appreciated. So these rumors are coming from Nash Weedle, who, if you've been following the channel as of late, you may be aware has been getting a lot of their leaks correct, especially with the most recent Nintendo Direct. A variety of things that they said would come have been announced already, such as Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, Resident Evil 7, 8, and 9, the Switch 2 edition of Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and more. But recently, Nash put out his third episode of Partida Zero. The show is in Spanish, but there are English dubbings and all that. And during the Leak Express section, where he provided a new leak, this leak has to do with the overall Metroid Prime series. He's saying he has been told that every Metroid Prime game is on the way, and he emphasizes every Metroid Prime game, and when you look at his video, he points out more than just Prime 2 and 3 in lead up to the release of Prime 4. Prime 2 and 3, and Metroid Prime Pinball, and Metroid Prime Federation Force, and Metroid Prime Hunters. There are other Prime titles. So if this rumor does pan out, how exactly is it going to happen? Well, I can think of it in two ways. One, we have Metroid Prime 4 Beyond coming out this December, right? I've talked about, and I'm sure many others agree, that Nintendo's going to kick up the marketing for this game as we approach release. We've talked about before how when it comes to Nintendo's big adventure titles, they tend to start jumping into a bigger marketing push when they're about 4 to 6 weeks away. We usually see some type of presentation from Nintendo, oftentimes a game-specific direct, as we've seen a lot of this year. We look at Donkey Kong Bonanza. A month before it came out, there was a Donkey Kong Bonanza Direct. We learned so much more about the game. A whole bunch of people changed their tunes on Donkey Kong after they saw this presentation, and there was so much energy going to the release for Donkey Kong. Nintendo may have a similar plan with Metroid here, and we only haven't seen it because, well, the game's coming out this December, and we're not 4 to 6 weeks away. But when we look at this 4 to 6 week window, Nintendo has already made several announcements of Metroid-related releases during this time. We have the official collaboration with Piggyback of the Metroid Prime 1 through 3 art book coming out October 28th. But then also on November 6th, we have two different Samus amiibos, and then on December 4th, the launch of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, they also have the Sonic amiibo coming out. So they already have several waves of releases meant to build up excitement for Metroid Prime 4. So I think it's already evident that Nintendo has a big plan here for Metroid, but I don't think it just stops there. I think there probably will be a Metroid Prime 4 Beyond Direct where we will learn about the game. They will have some sort of story summary. They will better showcase the mechanics of the game. They'll probably speak a little bit more on Viola, the motorcycle. They will also maybe reveal other things about Metroid that show how unique and amazing it is, like perhaps this theorized time travel element that could be in the game. And so Nintendo could easily have a 10 to 20 minute direct just on Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, especially if they are going to be announcing other Metroid games to be coming out as well. Nintendo might, as this rumor is suggesting, want to have a variety of Metroid games available so people can enjoy the series overall, and they may shadow drop these or announce these to be coming before Prime 4 comes out. We've talked about Metroid Prime 2 and 3. Metroid Prime 2 and 3 have been rumored for several years, and the basic theory behind this is that, yes, maybe at one point they're thinking about putting out the game as a trilogy series or a remaster collection or one then another, but because Prime 4 has taken so long, plans have adjusted somewhat here, and with Prime 2 and 3, it's been more so thought, at least into how I've thought of it, that they might treat it kind of like Pikmin 1 and 2, where there was already the Pikmin 3 Deluxe that people enjoyed on Switch 1 to hold them over until Pikmin 4, but then a few weeks before the release of Pikmin 4, they shadow drop Pikmin 1 and 2, so people can enjoy those games in the weeks leading up to Pikmin 4 as the game is being heavily advertised. I think something similar could happen this time around, except instead of it being Pikmin 1 and 2, it would be Metroid Prime 2 and 3, maybe shadow dropped about a month or so, 4 to 6 weeks, that window, before Prime 4 comes out, a longer window of time than it was for Pikmin 1 and 2 before Pikmin 4, which would make sense because Metroid Prime 2 and 3 are longer games. People enjoy these games if they so choose in lead up to Prime 4. I still think there's that possibility. It all comes down to that Metroid Prime 4 Direct. If they're not announced in that Metroid Prime 4 Direct, then I think Nintendo has a completely different plan here. Which might also relate to these other Metroid titles, because I find it hard to believe that Nintendo would have released like 5 different Metroid Prime games all in the eShop at once, but if it somehow happens, I'm open to it. It would actually be kind of really cool to see Nintendo just say, hey, here's the entire Metroid Prime series, play what you like, it's all there, maybe they have some sort of collection title. That would just be awesome. But is it realistic all at once? I don't think so. I think they would be spaced out, and I think what makes more sense is for Nintendo to be thinking about how they want to treat Metroid Prime, or just the Metroid series overall, long term. So if this rumor holds any real weight, I'm going to assume that these different Metroid games are coming out not all at once, but over time, and what Nash could be hearing here is more so about a long-term plan to continue to support the Metroid series. We think about the early 2000s, Nintendo actually had a lot of consistent Metroid releases, but then things died down. Between the years of 2002 and 2010, there was so much Metroid to enjoy. We had Metroid Prime, Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero Mission, Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime Hunters, Metroid Prime Pinball, Metroid Prime 3, Metroid Prime Trilogy, Metroid Other M. This all came out in an 8-year span. So clearly Nintendo cared about Metroid in the early 2000s. But unfortunately, during this era, we had the Nintendo GameCube and the Nintendo Wii. Now, the Nintendo Wii was a very successful piece of hardware for Nintendo. However, most of those sales were to a more casual audience, not an audience suited for core-centric gaming, and then the GameCube was just not very successful in comparison to a lot of other platforms. So it was not the best environment to see some core-centric series from Nintendo see great success. However, now, during the Switch and Switch 2 era, Nintendo has built up a very strong audience of core-centric gamers who just buy games and not things like Just Dance 17 or whatever they're on now. I know it's not that much, but point is that it's not just a casual audience that plays a few fitness games once or twice a year, but actually people who like playing some pretty exciting core-centric games several times a year. And so we've seen a variety of different Nintendo series throughout this era see new record highs. Mario, Zelda, Kirby, Pikmin, Xenoblade, and even Metroid with Metroid Dread. So Nintendo may be thinking of a way to keep Metroid consistent, continue to release high-quality games, and at first this is going to be bolstered by bringing back a lot of old Metroid Prime titles, as this rumor is suggesting. That's what makes the most sense to me, and I'm excited to be able to play Metroid Prime Pinball again on my Switch 2. That's going to be a fantastic time, I'm telling you. You might think pinball is not that big of a deal, but this is like the best pinball game ever. It's amazing. But this is just half of what we have to discuss today. There is another rumor that I think has to do with Metroid, but that's not necessarily the case. So Nash Riedel posted on Twitter, and this is translated, "Attention, 2025, a developer was behind a schedule. That developer has received an extension from Nintendo. Deadline, 2026. No further delays will be accepted. I'm sorry, I can't be more precise, but I think you'll understand. I made reference to this happening at some point." And so our real hint here is that he has talked about this before, and that is something that Nintendo is in partnership with another company to make. So I think this would rule out games where Nintendo doesn't really have much of a say, like something made by Rockstar, for example. I think what we're looking at here is kind of like a second party situation. Some people have speculated it could be Astral Chain, but if you look at the thread here, Nash Weedle is actually saying no to a variety of options. He's being very clear here. If you have an idea, you post in the thread, he will tell you, no, it's not that. So Alejandro suggested maybe Platinum Games, the makers of Astral Chain, and Nash Weedle said no. Now, to be clear, Nash Weedle's not saying that Astral Chain 2 is not going to happen. He's simply saying that this particular rumor does not have to do with anything made by Platinum Games, which would mean almost certainly not Astral Chain 2. And there are other things he says no to, like is this a Japanese third-party title? No. Is this the Ocarina of Time remake? No. Is this Splatoon Raiders? No. Is this a level 5 game? No. Also, some people are somehow construing this to maybe be Retro Studios having to delay Metroid Prime 4, as Nash Weedle says no. It's just so odd to me that people are still concerned about Metroid Prime 4 getting delayed. We have the official release date, people. There's nothing to worry about. It's coming out this year. But anyways, those are our hints for what this project is that's coming out in 2026. However, friend of the channel, who also communicates a lot with Nash Weedle's done a few different podcasts with, Attack the Backlog, suggests that it might be related to Mercury Steam. It seems to me that if we follow what's been known in the past and look at the clues, it points to Mercury Steam. New Metroid? And I agree with this, actually. I think this makes a lot of sense, and actually, if you look at Nash Weedle's past, he has talked about a 2D Metroid game being in development by Mercury Steam aimed as a Switch 1 title, though. And he also talked about there being potential delays. So, we think about what he's talking about here. A game that Nintendo will have a say in, something like Nintendo working with Mercury Steam to make another Metroid title, where there may have been potential delays that he has mentioned before. It all adds up, and he did not say no to anything having to do with Metroid in this thread. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense for Mercury Steam, the developer for Metroid Dread, the most successful Metroid game to date, for them to follow that up very soon. It's already been a few years. Metroid Dread came out in 2021. Considering their history of releases here, Samus Returns came out 2017, Dread came out 2021. They may have been on a 4-year timeline here, which is why there was talk of maybe it coming out in 2025. But obviously at this point that's not happening. Maybe there were some delays and now they have to wait a little bit longer for 2026. I think that's a reasonable amount of time to expect them to have made a 2D Metroid game, and having this 2D Metroid game out next year would be a great way to continue the Metroid momentum. We get Metroid Prime 4 this year, then they follow that up with 2D Metroid the year afterwards, and given how long it's taken them to make this, assuming Nintendo's not just sitting on the title and it's been done for a long time, I am more inclined to believe that this is a new title, maybe even Metroid 6. Now, some people get confused with the Metroid numberings. When you don't say Prime, you're talking about something completely different. For example, Metroid 4 has been out for many years. It's called Metroid Fusion. It came out for the Game Boy Advance back in 2002. And Metroid Dread is Metroid 5, not to confuse it with Metroid Prime 5, that would be a follow-up to Metroid Prime 4. So Metroid 6 would be another 2D Metroid game to follow up Metroid Dread, the game that came out back in 2021. Anyways, my point is that I'm inclined to believe this is a new title, and not just a remake. However, if we got a remake of Super Metroid, or Zero Mission, or Fusion, or really a remake of any Metroid game, I'd be open to it, but I'm even more excited for a new Metroid game, especially because Yoshio Sakamoto, the creator of the Metroid series, has talked about how he already has plans to go beyond Metroid Dread. No pun intended there. And some people might be skeptical that we could see a 2D Metroid game to come out immediately after Metroid Prime 4, but we did just see a very similar situation with Zelda. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, a big mainline 3D open-air Zelda game that took over half a decade to make, came out in 2023, and then a year later, we got The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, a brand new top-down 2D Zelda game. So there is absolutely precedent to suggest this is possible. There's absolutely been enough time for Mercury Steam to have developed a new Metroid game. and it also makes tons of sense for Nintendo to continue to build up momentum with the overall Metroid brand with consistent releases. And this time, during the Switch and Switch 2 era, I think the audience will be a lot more open to play Metroid, and so the overall Metroid series may continue to grow, and who knows, maybe Nintendo will announce a Metroid Park or a Metroid movie to follow in the coming years. That would be amazing. So fingers crossed for these rumors to be true. I think there's at least something to it for sure, but what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.